freaking first cut. Golly.
What's going on, YouTube? This is the final round recap of the BMW Championship. And by the way, there is a lot more to get into tonight. We have quite a show for you. I'm Greg DuCharme, taking the reins tonight for Rick Gaiman, who's traveling. But I'll do my best to keep everybody in line. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, and we'll get into it right now. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Greg DuCharme, joined tonight by Kyle Porter, and boy, we have quite a show for you tonight, Kyle. There is a lot to get into. We had a BMW Championship take place. Patrick Cantlay defends his title. A U.S. Amateur at Ridgewood Country Club in Paramus, New Jersey, which I know, KP, you were all over. And some talks going on and some reports going on the PGA Tour off the golf course. It's going to be quite a show, but what's going on, KP?
Well, it's funny, Greg, because when we started doing these I've been doing this podcast for a long time. We started doing daily shows, and when we first started it, obviously producer Jacob's been awesome producing it and scheduling it, and all of us are nightmares to deal with, and we can't ever get our schedule straight. And
right,
at least I am. And my first thought was like, we can't do a show every day. What are we going to talk about every day? And now it's like, should we do 2 shows a day? Maybe,
right?
Maybe like one every 12 hours. There's so much just going on in the world of golf, and most of it's super fun. Some of it is not, but we do have a ton to talk about, and I'm excited about pretty much all of it.
There's a lot of fun stuff to get into. What happens actually on the golf course always seems to be fun. But the other fun thing, KP, is our one and done league, which we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But I got to give you this this opportunity that's going on, which is it's spectacular. We have a special sale going on over at the FFT Draftathon store, and this is up for bid. You can bid on an opportunity to join our one and done league for the year. So all you got to do is scan the QR code. The link is also in the description here in this video, wherever you're watching or listening. And there's other stuff going on over there as well. There's plenty of fantasy football related content getting you ready for 2022. It includes a personal pre-draft Zoom with fantasy experts at CBS Sports. I mean, imagine if every single week you could have a Zoom call with Rick Gaiman getting you ready for your DFS lineups in golf. You can do that in football. All you got to do is scan that QR code. So that is some really exciting stuff. But Kyle, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, if I bid on this, does that money go toward my one and done total?
Well, of course, it's going to a good cause. And there's more information coming out about that cause, which we'll get to, and Jacob can help us out about that.
Is Jay Monahan going to say something about it next week?
It's on his desk.
So producer Jacob, get in here. If I bid on this,
yeah,
$670. There's 34 bids. That's crazy.
It's impressive.
So
I wonder if it's 2 folks going back and forth.
Could be. So if I jump in at 670, will you count that toward my one and done total for next year?
Sure. You can start. You can start off with whatever. If you win it because of your charitable efforts, I will put that money in your bank for the one and done league next.
This
year.
might be a long-term play for me to keep the sand pounders out of the competition.
That's true. The full screen's getting pretty crowded there. So, adding one more name that could be disastrous.
So we could have a fan and the fans in the aggregate.
Yes. We could have a fan versus the fans, figure out if almost like what was that show, like 1 versus 100, like we could see, they're the smartest one of all the fans. Lots of possibilities there.
I think whoever finishes last should not get to play the following year.
They should get relegated.
Yeah.
More on that to come.
Like
that is a steep punishment.
They have to play a one and done with like my kids or something.
They have to go play like Asian Tour one and done. They have to go find one online. Grinding out international series.
That is brutal.
We haven't talked about the Patrick Reed Brandel lawsuit, have we?
I certainly haven't talked about
You're
it.
gonna have
talked
to
about it a lot.
You're gonna have to keep me on track here because I'm just gonna be all over the place.
And there's so much to get into, but let's start. Let's keep this a little bit in line here. Let's start with Patrick Cantlay. All right, he's in the BMW Championship this weekend, and he defends his title successfully. A different golf course this week. It was at Wilmington Country Club in Delaware, and he's able to fend off Scott Stallings of all other people, which was almost a disaster to the most regular player on the PGA Tour. I mean, the most regular player on tour cannot have a playoff victory and be in that category. So he almost played his way out of that.
Do you think he would have been and I say this is not intended to be derogatory, but do you think he would have been the worst winner in playoff history?
I'd have to go back and look. Didn't Heath Slocum win a PGA?
No, did he?
I think he won the first playoff event one year.
Oh, he did. You're right. Nick Watney.
That's the first one that jumps off the page to me. Nick Watney was a really good player when
he was good. Chris Kirk is up there.
Very comparable to Stallings, probably.
Stallings would have been up there with like Kirk and Slocum and Charlie Hoffman. I think Charlie Hoffman's probably better than Scott Stallings. Definitely better.
Yeah, I would say.
So it would have been a conversation for sure.
Yeah, but I think Heath Slocum's probably the leader in the clubhouse right now. But it was he played great. Scott Stallings played great, but Patrick Cantlay, the heavy hitter, was able to get the job done. I mean, this was a really impressive performance from him. He made 3 birdies on his back 9 at 11, 14, and 17. He was really steady. His lag putting was phenomenal. And it was really, to me, KP, just a well-rounded performance. But he now jumps all the way up from the 7th spot in the FedEx Cup standings to number 2. And this is starting to look a lot like where it looked last year. It's not out of nowhere by any means, because Patrick Cantlay's been playing some great golf, leads the PGA Tour in top 10s. But this is his first individual win of the year, and it was a really impressive performance.
Yeah, we were talking about this on HQ, and I made I actually want to hear what you have to say. Do you think this year has been successful or disappointing for Patrick Cantlay?
Oh, well, there are disappointing elements, right? This is kind of the bizarre thing. When you finish second place, having 3 second place finishes is better than having 3 13th place finishes, but it's more disappointing. You feel like you're a lot closer. And there's one moment, if my ball doesn't plug in the bunker at the RBC Heritage, I win, right? I make a putt in Phoenix, and who knows, they might be talking about me for player of the year instead of Scotty Scheffler. I mean, who knows what happens? So I would say ultimately this was probably all around a better year than last year, but far more disappointing.
You think all around a better year?
Well, I think you could make that argument. I mean, he's been phenomenal this year. 11 top 10s this year. I mean, it's been some really consistent play out of Patrick Cantlay. Now, look, it's he won 4 times last year. Now, this would be, if he wins next week, it's 3 wins. So you're right in the same neighborhood. You're right in the same ballpark.
So, to your point, I just ran the numbers on this from January 1 to August 7, whatever we're at. August 21. So today.
Yeah.
So January 1 to August 21 of last year, he was 1.85 strokes gained. Now that went up because some of the playoff events were later on where he really thrived.
Yeah.
So he improved that later in the year. But January 1 to August 21 of this year, not including this week even, I don't think that's included yet, he's 2.05. So statistically, he's been
better.
Decent, better, but by a decent margin. If you're over 2 for a year, that's big time. That's really impressive. That's really hard to do.
Yeah.
There's not that many guys that have done it. So I think that's a really interesting point, because and it speaks to the way that we do we give more weight to wins than statistical performance. And I think we should, right? Like there's winning matters, and we talk about this all the time, but I think what happens is that when winning is the only thing that matters, sometimes it obscures. Like I honestly, like I couldn't have told you that Cantlay was having a better year because he hadn't won. And I think even more than that, because he hadn't played that great at the majors. You know, you think about, especially the first two, the Masters and the PGA Championship. And he comes into this year off of last year's high, winning whatever 4 times. You're right, man, Cantlay is ready to just like mess some people up at the majors. And he plays an egg really at the first 2, kind of 3 major championships. And we've got the numbers up here. That's disappointing, you know? And so I think a little bit of that was kind of coloring my view of him as like, well, he's not in the Cam Smith, Scheffler, even obviously Rory at the majors this year. He's not in that category, but he's played really well. I mean, look at these last 8 tournaments. He's just positive in everything. And you've made this point, he has no holes. And that leads to a lot of top 8s, top 6s, top 10s. And I think that, you know, you'd like to see him win more for sure, but he's had a better year than I probably was giving him credit for.
Yeah. And look, playoff losses are really tough, and those go the other way. You know, one guy beats you, Jordan Spieth and Scotty Scheffler in 2 different cases. And if he comes out on top of those, this is a much different conversation. His major performance this year was better than last year. I'm with you, totally with you. The first 2 was terrible, but you're talking about 2 top 15 finishes in the next 2. Last year, his best finish in a major was a tied 15th. So he had, you know, in the last 2 years, his 2 best finishes in majors were this year. I think there was a lot more consistency this year. He missed 5 cuts last year. He only missed 2 cuts this year. You're 11 top 10s this year to 7 last year. There are a lot of elements.
So good.
Yeah, it's really. And he only put 19 events, 11 top 10s and 19 events. That's contention, regular contention.
Yeah, and it's most. I mean, it's tournament champions. That's big time. Phoenix is really good. RBC Heritage is okay. Zurich, whatever, team event. Memorial, great. Scottish Open was like a top 7 field this year. Open Championship, obviously, and then Rocket Mortgage is not that good, but BMW is a really strong field also. So it's mostly in like big boy fields. It's not a. This is not to pick on Finau because he's been tearing it up everywhere, but it's not. You know, you're not just doing it at 3M and Rocket Mortgage and places like that.
Yeah, and you could say with the Zurich, teaming up with Schauffele, you kind of stack your team, and you can get a really big advantage, which they did. You still got to get the job done, and I'm not taking anything away from it, but that's like you're picking on the smaller fields kind of thing.
Yeah,
but his, the Memorial and the U.S. Open and the Open Championship and the Scottish, all the ones you mentioned, they prove the point. This guy's legit. And he's going to be hard to beat next week. He's 2 shots back of Scotty Scheffler, and he's going to be really hard to beat. That actually brings us right to that staggered start, unless you got something else.
Well, real quick, I think I just don't understand. He finished last year at 2.15 strokes gained overall, by the way, the entire year. So
okay, 2021.
Post post this date. I think the BMW last year was after this date, and obviously the Tour Championship also. So he's got a little bit of. He'll probably be around there after the numbers come out from this week's BMW. He'll be around 2.15, which is just disgusting. But
and
I think the thing that I don't understand about Cantlay, and we've talked about this 100 times, is you look at the tournaments, and if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it. You look at the tournaments on here, and you're like, okay, he plays well at American Express and Pebble and Phoenix Open. And then you get to the legit, this is a really hard course and you got to hit golf shots to play it well courses, Riviera, TPC Sawgrass, Augusta National. And that's where the drop off is. And you're like, you watch Cantlay and you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Like he hits like unbelievable shots, and he has such great control of his golf ball. And I don't, at Southern Hills, he misses the cut. I just don't get how, like, there are times where I understand why some guys thrive in worse setups. And with him, like, if you just gave me these finishes, I would assign them to the wrong courses, right? Like I would put them on the wrong courses because of his skill set. And I just don't understand that. And I don't know if you have any insight on that or any thoughts on that, but it makes no sense to me.
No, it's a hard one to figure out. It really is, because, you know, it makes me wonder if it's the moment. Is it is he putting the same pressure on himself come major championship time, come Riviera time that we do? And is that why you see such a big change in performance? Because he's a different player in these events. I mean, the Players Championship, he was on the right side of the draw. I mean, he should be licking his chops there. You'd expect him. I mean, that is a perfect setup for him. The Masters and the PGA, is he putting too much pressure on himself? Is he saying, all right, this is my year for a major?
Yeah.
And that can be hard. That can change your performance. It can change your skill set in a way. And I wonder if that, I wonder if that plays into it, but it's puzzling. And I don't think there's a clear-cut answer.
No, I agree. Okay. Staggered start.
Yeah. Staggered start. So a couple things happen in the staggered start. And I know you tweeted out the picture of what has happened, and where everybody's going to start. So you see Scotty Scheffler got back to his number one spot, which I think is deserving and fitting. And he obviously played great this week too, finishing tied third. So Scotty's at 10. Patrick Cantlay moves from 7th up to second. He'll start at 8 under. Will Zalatoris, who withdrew this week, is going to start at 7. Xander moves up into the 6th spot. He's a name that I think a lot of people have circled. And Sam Burns is the top, is in 5th. Now, everybody who's won the Tour Championship with the staggered start so far has been in this group so far. Two guys have
has been in the top 5, right?
Has been in the top 5.
Yeah.
Rory was the farthest back. He started at 5 under, and I think he won by 4 in 2019.
Yeah. I forgot who started in first that year. Reed?
No, but I think I have
JT. I think it was JT.
Yeah, it was JT, and JT shot 3 under on his own ball for 3 under for 13 under, and finished tied third. Then your other winners, DJ in 2020 started at 10 under.
Yeah,
went on to win, and Cantlay last year started at 10 under and went on to win. So when you look at this, what do you think? Is Scotty going to get it done next week? Is there anybody that stands out to you that's not in this top 5?
Well, so a couple things. First of all, I think that it's a little bit. So what has the tour been saying about live golf, right? They're exhibitions. They're not real tournaments. They're exhibitions. Yeah. It's a little disingenuous to say that, and then you conduct your biggest championship, or maybe not your biggest, but your year-end championship as a net event, right? Yeah. Like it's, and that's not, I mean, I get why they do it. I understand like the reasons behind it and the methodology and all that stuff. And I think a lot of it's solid. It just feels a little bit like, oh, like you guys do the exhibition, but we're the ones that are starting events with like staggered starts. And so that just still feels, again, it's fine. I understand it. It just still feels a little goofy. And then I think they're a little hung up, Craig, between, are we rewarding the best player of this season, or are we rewarding the best player of the playoffs? Because, and I was big on this a couple weeks ago, and some people were not excited about it, but you can't let everybody in the playoffs and then like there's
give everybody a chance to win.
There's too many people in the playoffs, right? I think like the tour is basically saying that by reducing the number to 70 last year from 125 this year. But it just the whole thing is weird to me because it's like, well, let's either reward the best year or let's just let a certain number of people in the playoffs, like they do in whatever the NBA or Major League Baseball, say everybody's at 0, go get it. You guys all earned this opportunity to go and win this championship. But like right now they're trying to combine like a Premier League would, where it's like, okay, well, who did the best throughout the 38 regular season games? And that team is the champion, right? So they're like combining that with a Major League Baseball or an NFL. And I don't really know what to make. I think it's hard to know what to make of all of that, right? Because you're like, well, Scheffler is first because he was good in like March, but he's kind of not been great in the playoffs. But he's like, it's just hard to, I think, decipher everything that's going on. Does any of that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense to me. And I have a very similar opinion that it's the biggest problem that they face is trying to reward the best players from the year in the playoffs. And if
Playoffs?
And again, I was trying to come up with this back when everybody was, sharing ideas on what the best way to do this is when they came out with this. And my thinking is, if you're going to reward players for the regular season, reward them at the end of the regular season. Expand Comcast Business Top 10. Take whatever you have in your bonus pool and do it there. And then, and I'm not saying it has to be, well, we're going to flip them. So you have 170 million or 70 million, whatever the total is in the FedEx Cup playoffs at the end of the season. And then we're going to play for $20 million in the playoffs. I'm not saying that. You can divvy up these numbers a little bit differently. But if you want to say Scotty Scheffler was the best player in the world this year, then reward him a little more than $4 million, which is great. And it's a lot, but it's a lot less than 18 million that you win for winning the playoffs.
Well, it's almost like, and we don't need to spend a ton of time on this because producer Jacob just subtly let us know that we'll be doing this in a future episode, redoing the playoffs. But it's almost like, hey, let's just and again, this is not probably going to be super popular and won't make the tour a ton of money, but let 20 guys in, 12 guys, right? Like whatever. Like otherwise, the regular season just doesn't. I don't know. The whole thing is just it feels like when developers write code for products, and you have a product where it's like a really old piece of software, and they just layered code on code on code on code on code, and by 40 years in, it's a complete mess because at the time it seemed like the right thing to do to add another piece of code to the piece of software. But you get 40 years down the road and you're like, wow, there's a lot of individual decisions that when you add them all up and try to make them make sense, don't totally make sense.
Right.
That's what this feels like.
I totally understand it. And we can save this. We could save all this conversation for another episode. But I feel like I understand what the mission is. I understand what they're trying to do. And I do think it creates a fair product. But this is an era where, is it fair for the players? Is it right for the players? And unfortunately, we're in this position where we have to make sure that it's good for the players. And it used to always be, well, let's make it really good for the fans. And we'll reward the players. But our mission is to get people watching. And when people watch, we can reward the players.
Well, and you look at Sepp Straka being 9th here.
Yeah.
Okay. Why is Sepp Straka 9th?
Right, because he came in second in a playoff event.
And I just again, you're. But if you do that, if Sepp Straka is actually 9th, you have to start everybody, I think, from 0.
Sepp Straka would then be second, entering this week, entering BMW.
Yeah, maybe that's not Sepp Straka wouldn't be in my playoffs, I guess, maybe.
Well, I don't remember where he came in. I feel like he came in the 40s, but I understand what you're saying. You make the playoffs something really special. Maybe there's a way to move to start the playoffs almost just like the Tour Championship. It's not 3 legs of playoffs. but the last two events of the regular season are elevated and they become a final push to get into this one tournament.
Yeah.
You
So.
could do that.
All that conversation to say, I do think Scheffler's going to win. It feels like, so I think one thing that's gotten buried a little bit, he's continued to hit it great this summer. He just hadn't putted as well. And so the results haven't been there. So it feels like he's struggling, and he is in some areas, but he's still, I mean, he's so consistent with his ball striking, not just this year, but even last year when he wasn't winning. It's just week in, week out. It's so good. And I think that this year to me feels tantamount to what Spieth did in 15, where he wins early on and wins, majors, and then he caps it all with the Tour Championship. Same thing with JT in 17. I guess he didn't win the Tour Championship, but he won the FedEx Cup. That's what it feels like is happening with Scottie Scheffler. That it's the proper ending, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's it. As of right now, that's what it feels like is going to happen.
It does feel that way. I am in total agreement with you. We're going to get to a break here, but I'll let you know a couple of other guys who were on the outside who moved inside after the BMW Championship. Adam Scott came in 45th. He gets in at number 29. That was really exciting to watch that drama unfold. He's the only player now to play his way into both of the first two, to play his way in both cases into the next playoff event, which is pretty cool. KH Lee was 33rd coming in. He got to number 26. Impressive year for him. And it was his first. Jacob put this in the rundown. This is great. Before today, he had not had a final round under par since his win at the AT&T Byron Nelson in May. That's pretty cool. And then lastly, Aaron Wise entered at 31st and moved up to 30th. So there was a lot of movement. I mean, Tom Kim entered at 25th and missed the Tour Championship, which that's a lot of spots to fall. So I was a little surprised by that, but it was there was definitely a lot of movement. But KP, on the other side of the break, we're going to get into Tiger Woods and his meeting with the players. And if you thought this was all over the place, just wait till we join you after this break. We'll take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. All right, Kyle. There's a lot to get into here. So Tiger has a meeting with the players on Tuesday at the BMW Championship. It was 22 players, and there was really no reports. No reports really came out. Everybody who was asked about it had just kind of general comments. All the players were very tight-lipped, and we now have a report coming out from Alan Shipnuck talking about a tour within the tour, which is essentially 18 big money events, and also something that you have been saying for a long time now, getting rid of their nonprofit status. What are your initial reactions to this news?
I think the nonprofit status is going to go away, and I'll get into why I think that when we talk about the next thing we're going to talk about, which was an Eamon Lynch report on, I think it was on Sunday. Yeah, it was on Sunday. I think that this is, I mean, Rory said this in his press conference on Wednesday. He's like, you got to get all the top guys together at the same tournaments, which is like people on Twitter who are pro live or whatever bot. I don't know what these people are, but
I don't either.
They make pro live points, and I think they're very like, oh, you know, the tour is just copy and live, and it's like, hey, live does some good stuff. Like, there are good components to live. Like, we just live in this world where everything is so binary, where if you don't like it, you also can't think any of it is good. It's like, right. I don't really like live, but I think they do a lot of things that are good. You know, I think components of it are super compelling, and the tour copying the fact that they get all their players in the same tournaments at the same places is the right move. I mean, you probably should have been doing that a while ago. It's hard because I think part of the tour's allure It's like, hey, you can choose your schedule and you can play when you want, and we'll always have some stars, but we will rarely have all the stars. And I just don't know. I think that one of the problems is they got so sprawling with their tournaments, right? There's 35 events, 40 events, 45 events. And it's like, hey, they're all going to be like pretty good. And a couple of them are going to be really good. And it just, man, that feels like the XFL or something, like that sort of mindset where it's like, well, what if you just condense things and made 10 of them or 12 of them or 18 of them awesome, and the other ones are worse than than they used to be. To me, that's the path forward. That's the right way to go. And does that suck for the Scott Stallings of the world and the Peter Malnati's of the world? Maybe. Do you still offer? I mean, one of the things, and this gets back to what we were talking about before the break, what if you just offered like twice as many FedEx Cup points at the good events, or no FedEx Cup points at the bad events, or something like that? There's so many things you could do that would make the kind of core of your product. I mean, think about the Players Championship. The Players Championship is a PGA Tour event. Feels like a freaking big deal. And you know why that is? Because it's at a course that we know, and everybody in the world is at that tournament.
Yeah.
Like, what if there were more of that? You can't replicate the Players Championship, but you can create more events kind of like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think the tour, it's I think they had good intentions, but man, I think this is a much better future for what direction they should go.
Now, in a way, again, these reports are just reports, and nothing has been decided yet. But I do feel like, in a way, with changes that are already official starting next year, they have accomplished a lot of those things, right? The FedEx Cup season is now January to the playoffs to August, right? That condenses things. Then you take these 8 events and raise the purses significantly. And in a way, I mean, they're right up there with Players Championship level purses. And I think there's a reasonable expectation that you're going to get all the stars there. So you have the first 2 playoff events, which are really good fields. You have the Players, the Memorial, the Arnold Palmer Invitational. You have Tiger's event, the Genesis. So that's 3, and 2 is 5, and then you have the 4 majors, which is 9, and you start to get up to a pretty significant number.
Yeah,
it depends on where you classify the WGC, the match play. There'll be another one. My point is, they're there, and I think they've answered the first question by just changing the schedule and reducing the number of players that get into the playoffs.
The first question
was a big problem.
Which question?
Condensing the schedule.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's I heard people should go check out. There's a really good podcast that Andy Johnson and Joseph Lamagna did for the Fried Egg. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And in it, they were talking about how so what you're saying is true. But those are like, it's almost informally, it's like a wink, like these are the most important events. And they were talking about how you could formalize that by only giving FedEx Cup points to 12 events or whatever the number is. And then it becomes like a really special, and they've already reduced the number of players that get into the FedEx Cup, right? It's 70.
Right. So
it's already becoming a little bit more special. Then it becomes like, oh, those are the events you're forcing players to play events without telling them, hey, you have to be at this event. Right.
Right.
And that feels really good. I don't know. I don't know if that's the path to like formalize it, but I think there needs to be a formalization of like, hey, these are the 15 events that matter, whatever it is. I think what's going to be really interesting, Greg, is what does that do to the other 30 events? And does that in any way affect the way the TV contracts are structured? I read a live player's contract the other day. I had no idea what was going on, so I do not want to get into TV contracts at all. But right. I'm curious about that and intrigued by, just sort of how all of that stuff is affected if you do formalize it even further than you already have.
Yeah, I think there's a way you could navigate through that. But to point, I think this has something to do with TV contracts. But they have in the past. You get the same number of FedEx Cup points for, trying to think of 2 examples. They level the FedEx Cup points. They make them very level in every single event so that players do choose, so that at the John Deere Classic, you get a star or 2. So it doesn't kind of force players down a path of playing a certain schedule, and it spreads it out a little bit. And what you end up with is Tony Finau winning the 3M Open in a great finale that does great on TV. Winning the Rocket Mortgage does great.
Is that your future? Like, is that?
Yeah, well, it's very much in question now. But that's what they've done in the past. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this would be a big departure from that. And I think the TV contracts, they like that because you can, in a way, you can make some promises to every event.
Listen, like, I think one interesting question is, does a TV contract with, this is reductive, but does a TV contract with 15 players championships make more money than a contract with 1 players championship and 43 other events?
Yeah, it's a phenomenal question.
And that's over. I'm obviously oversimplifying that. It's not that simple, but I'm very intrigued by that, and almost like, does it? Part of this is the players forcing the tour's hand, right? The players are the tour, et cetera, et cetera. And if the players are like, hey, we need to all get together at the same events more, and they're all on the same page, and Tiger is saying, hey, this is what we need to do, this is what you guys need to do, then that's what's going to happen,
right?
Regardless of what the TV contract, like, hey, figure it out, is like probably what the players are saying to the rest of us. And this is where we're going to show up, and this is how much we're going to get paid and all that stuff. So I don't know. I'm again, it feels a little copycat in terms of live, but I think that to me, it's if you tell me, hey, we're going to consolidate a bunch of this sprawling schedule and tour into 15 events that are big time. I mean, you watch, man, I was watching even the U.S. Women's Amateur last week. Man, this feels big time. There's only like 200 people here or whatever. There's not that many people, but it's a championship, right? It's a USGA championship. You've been around that a ton, and you're like, yeah, this is what this should feel like. And I get really excited when I hear, hey, everybody's showing up for these 12 or 15 events, whether it's formal or informal or whatever. And I really think that's a real path forward for the PGA Tour to conduct business against LIV.
It'll be a very interesting saga to follow, as it has been for over a year now. It feels like, and there's only more coming. So we'll continue to discuss that throughout the year. We have all this stuff comes up regularly, and we are working our way closer to 2 episodes a day, it seems like, because we have plenty to talk about on the course, and there's all this to talk about off the golf course too. But this is the other thing I wanted to get into with UKP, the Eamon Lynch report.
Yeah.
On Tiger and Rory starting now this report's very vague, and it's in its infancy for sure. But apparently Jay Monahan is on board with the concept of 1-day events that are technology based and in stadiums, which I found to be very interesting. There'll be a select number of players, and it's staged with a live audience. And there are some rumors that reports or potentials that it could run in January through March, with some kind of finale held later. When you read this report, what do you think? Like, what do you make of this?
I was about to ask you the same thing, to put the pressure on you. reads like a long drive contest or a skills competition or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what it is. It is incredibly vague and maybe purposefully so. I think, it says something in here about how Monahan is going to have more specifics could be announced by Jay Monahan this week at the Tour Championship. So I'd be intrigued by that. By the way, Jay, you said Jay Monahan's on board. I think anything Tiger and Rory say, Jay Monahan's probably on board with at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the most interesting part of this, and this is something that I had heard a little bit behind the scenes, I'll just read this straight from the article. It says, it was presented as a long-term opportunity for players to build equity in the enterprise. So it'd almost be this, think about the match, but closely affiliated with the tour and owned partly by the players and not golf, but skills, I guess.
Right. Sanctioned by the tour. Right.
Sanctioned by the tour. That's the right way to say it. To build equity in the enterprise, which will have private funding. That's the most important part. I'll come back to that. In addition to corporate partnerships and sponsors. The proposal was received positively among players in the room, according to a source familiar with the conversation. Again, if Tiger and Rory are saying something, it's probably going to be received positively by the players in the room. But the private funding part is something that other people have reported and I have heard, which is that the tour is trying to shed its nonprofit status. Or at least that's what I believe this is referencing, because I believe you can't be a nonprofit and receive private funding unless there's a backdoor. We need Sia on here. Unless there's a backdoor into nonprofits that I'm not thinking of or don't know of off the top of my head, which is could totally be the case. But I think the private funding part is, man, there's just, I think there's a lot of doors that could open with a for-profit PGA Tour if they get rid of their nonprofit status. There's a lot of downsides to it. You think about having to pay volunteers and different things like that, but to be funded by, privately, or to give, like it says in here, players some equity, or to, I don't know all the mechanisms. I just know that there's a lot more flexibility in terms of how payment is distributed when you're a for-profit organization than when you're a not-for-profit organization.
Right.
And so to me, like whatever that thing turns out to be, it says 2024, whether it's a long drive or a skills deal or an all-star type thing or whatever. To me, the biggest tell or whatever in here is that part, because it signals something that I think is going to happen, which is the tour over the next year or two is going to become a for-profit organization.
Yeah, that's a very interesting aspect, and we'll see how that all plays out, because that also connects with the story we just talked about with the tour within the tour. So it definitely seems it's starting to smell like they're going in that direction. But there was one other thing I found really interesting about that. And it's that it's in stadiums, which to me, technology and in stadiums, you can do a long drive in a simulator, right? You have numbers come up there. There's a lot of short game skills and putting skills you can do with or without technology. But stadiums, to me, I wonder if that has any effect on where the PGA Tour plays. If these one-day events are going to be convenient for players, they're probably going to be around, on a Monday or on a Tuesday of a PGA Tour event in the same city. And I wonder if they're going to go and play in Chicago again, and at Soldier Field, you're going to have a PGA Tour skills competition indoors. I wonder if that's going to be the case. But stadiums to me was very interesting, because you got to be selective with where you go if you're going to have events in stadiums like this, unless they're planning on doing it in high school stadiums, small college stadiums.
Yeah. Kyle Field. Shout out to Sam Bennett. Do you think there's a market for something like this?
I think the size of the market is very interesting, but I think it's a very cool concept. I think golf and skills competitions can work, and it's an easy thing for players to do. It's a fun thing, and I think people will like it. I mean, can that be publicly traded? I'm not sure if it's I'm not sure if there's that kind of market for it. But I do think it's a really cool add-on for a PGA Tour event. But it's just hard to.
It's interesting because I watched the Slime Cup.
Yeah,
if I just said that sentence, but the Nickelodeon thing with my kids, and you're like, okay, this is an hour or whatever it was, and the compelling part is not the shots that they hit, but the way they interacted, right? And so I think that would be conceivably a really big part of this. Is can you like watching? I think an underrated aspect of being at a golf tournament is watching guys interact and hearing them talk, right?
Yeah,
it's like super speaking the language type stuff. And if you're a golf nerd or if you love golf, you can't get enough of it. You know, you're around a group like any of them. They don't even have to be superstars, but when they're just talking golf and talking about, you know, launch angles and spin rates and just insane stuff like that, it's so compelling. And I don't know why. Right. And maybe I'm in a super minority, but I think players speaking any language that is like sort of unique to their sport is compelling to followers of that sport, whether it's
you're behind the curtain.
Why do shows that include like the Gruden show on ESPN or whatever, when you're just talking football or, you know, whatever. So I think that to me would be a big aspect of anything that they would go down this path.
And again, we're going to hear a lot more about this in the coming days. So I'm very interested, very intrigued to see how all of this plays out. But the conversations on the first cut have taken a little bit of a different turn, seemingly, and it's very interesting to think about. It's quite a mind exercise. But KP, I know your focus was largely on the USAM today.
It was.
And Sam Bennett defeats Ben Carr 1-up. Ben Carr is a great story at a great golf swing, and Sam Bennett is quite a player. But I want to get your thoughts on the USAM. I know you were closely following.
Yeah, it was awesome. I followed it most of the week. Did you ever play at a USAM?
No.
Did you get close?
No, I didn't. Closer to. Nah, I'm not even going to say that. Closer to Opens, because I tried to play in them, but never really advanced anywhere. But I got off to a late start in my own career. I didn't start playing until I was like 16. I was never near that level.
So when you were 16, 17, 18, 19, was the USAM like a massive deal? Like, obviously it's a massive deal, but to your kind of contemporaries?
No, it wasn't. But again, we're very new to the game. Like my contemporaries weren't really golfers. We became golfers, but we're hockey players or basketball players, or we grew up playing other sports, and we get into it a little bit later on and fall in love. And then you start finding out what the USAM is and find out what the US Open is. But really the initial attention for me was Tiger Woods. And so the PGA Tour and the professional golf had the highest intrigue by far. But as time goes on and you learn about it and you start to study the history and you start to care about the game on a deeper level, the USAM grows and grows and grows in importance.
Yeah, I think I was struck by what a big deal it felt like throughout the week. I mean, the amount of people that attended, and obviously when you consolidate every fan on property to one group, it looks like there are more people there than there actually are, right?
Yeah, and they're closer, right there on the green. They're surrounding the green.
It's freaking cool. Like, yeah. I think it's phenomenal. And so I love the US Amateur. I think every year I love it more than I did the year before. It felt like a reprieve from a lot of the professional stuff. And, you know, it was super fun to watch. There were some really interesting holes. I think it was the 12th at Ridgewood. That was the drivable par 4. Stuart Hagestad hit a driver to like 3 feet there earlier this week, which was insane. And then the storylines I thought were incredibly compelling. You know, you mentioned Sam Bennett, Ben Carr, both lost their fathers over the last 2 years. I think Carr was 2 years ago. Bennett was last year. Maybe Carr was 3 years ago. And so
19.
Yeah, there was a ton of just emotion, I think, surrounding both of them. And it was a fun match. Bennett never trailed. he was either tied or led all 36 holes, which is, I think, a rarity to go 36 and never trail once. Like that just doesn't really happen. He got 5 up at one point. It looked like he was going to Saki Baba car, to use that as a verb. I think the Golf Channel guys were using that. She won 11-9 at Chambers Bay last week in the final, but he didn't. Ben Carr kind of fought back. Bennett missed a 3-footer on like 15, and then Carr made a sweet birdie on 17, par 5. He made like a 20-footer to keep it alive to take it to the last hole. But I think the thing, Greg, that I was most struck by with Bennett, he's A&M SEC Player of the Year. He just twirls the hell out of the golf club, which I obviously love. Oh, I just love it. He's a little bit, he's super confident. And I think it was really impressive when somebody is that confident. He's after he beat Hagestead on, I think it was Thursday, maybe Friday. He said they're great players. He faced like 4 of the top 30 in the WAGR, in the World Amateur Golf Rankings, in his match play stuff. He said they're great players, but I'm a better player. Number 3 in the rankings, and I feel like I'm the best player. I'm the dog in this race. I've been playing the best golf leading up to here. Yesterday I was 10 under through 29. Today I didn't quite have it, but I got the job done. Et cetera, et cetera. Oh, he said I've got Menante. I can't say that kid's name. Menante, the North Carolina kid, tomorrow. Obviously, he's playing good. Another tough opponent. I think it's going to be a good match. But I think the hardest thing to do in sports, Greg, is to proclaim your self-confidence and then go back it up, especially in golf, because like so many just crazy, idiotic things can happen.
Yes.
And he went and did it. I mean, he was just so, even to watch him in the finale, he was so mentally locked in to where it seemed like Carr was kind of wavering at times. Like Carr was getting down on himself, and Bennett was just like never wavered, never changed. And he's almost this trash talking grinder, if that makes sense. Like that's a
good. I like that.
He's a grinder with flair, and that to me is super impressive. And some people maybe didn't love how much time he was taking over shots or some of his club twirls or whatever. And I think there's some fairness in there, but I thought he was a really compelling U.S. Amateur winner. Very
compelling, because he was
he's a character.
He played in the U.S. Open this year. He's a star, and there's more. He's very memorable. We'll say that. And a lot of that didn't come out at the U.S. Open. Yeah. If you're not following college golf, you wouldn't know that.
I didn't even really know that he played in the U.S. He finished T49.
Yeah. He played nice. He had some good shots.
Yeah.
But this obviously gets him a lot more attention, and people are going to remember Sam Bennett. And I hope they remember Carr too, because he is a heck of a player. And he's got to leave this feeling like he should have won this tournament. I mean, what he did on the 31st hole after Bennett hits it out of bounds.
Oh,
it's heartbreaking.
If people didn't watch, I think it's par 5 13th, Bennett hooks one out of bounds. So all Carr has to do is just hit his, was that his second?
Yes.
Lay his second up, get it, just run it up there, whatever, anything, and make par and get it and win the hole. And he hooked his out of bounds also. And just a complete nightmare for him.
He had to get up and down from the bunker, short-sided in the bunker for 6.
But it was cool. He wins his match on Saturday night, and he just kind of breaks down because you win that match and you're in the Masters, you're in the U.S. Open for next year. And he was talking about his mom being there, his brother, his dad had passed away, all of his friends being there, and you're like, oh, this event is the coolest. It's so emotional. There's so much wrapped up into it that you just don't get at a regular pro event, and you shouldn't. Like, they're very different events, but I had a ton of appreciation for the championship that the USGA put on. It was awesome.
Really, really cool event. And you said it earlier about the U.S. Women's Am. It feels big time. And this one definitely did as well.
Yeah.
So it was a great watch.
Dude, those guys are pros. I mean, they play like high-level Korn Ferry or low-level PGA Tour players. They hit every fairway.
Yeah.
They're freaking long. I mean, Bennett hits it like Joaquin Neiman. I mean, he just his body is like just his spine angle would make Brandel have a conniption. Like he's just this is just unbelievable. And they don't their short games are so good. Like they don't miss 4-footers, you know, and you think about the US amateur, like, oh, anybody could, you know, there's this allure. They're like, oh, any amateur could win. And it's like, no, like you're playing against professional golfers that just aren't getting paid for it.
Not yet, anyway.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, but they're well on their way. It's a really cool stepping stone. And you see it time and time again. There are guys in this tournament who you probably didn't even see because they may not have made it to match play that are going to go on to be PGA Tour stars. So it's always a great event. Now, we have a little bit more to get into here. We got some housekeeping to get into. We got some best bets. We got our one and done to get to. All exciting stuff. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners. And we're back. All right, KP. I think we did all right getting through all that stuff in the time we did. I don't think it was egregious.
No.
So I'm happy with how we moved along.
You're keeping the train on the tracks over here. It's good.
Let's start with best bets because they were not great. Rick,
No.
top Aussie Cam Davis plus 175. Obviously, Adam Scott was the top Aussie. Cam Davis was not. God bless you. But I really liked that pick. I thought Cam Davis was going to have a great week. But Adam Scott just he outdid him. Kyle, Cam Davis, top 20. I'm right there with you. I like that pick. Just didn't pan out.
Yeah, he finished T35. I was disappointed. You know, he was near the lead after 2 days, and then he shot 75, 71, I think, on the weekend to fall back to T35. So I still I would do the pick again. I was just bummed by the way he kind of finished.
Yeah, it was disappointing. Mark got himself into a dogfight on this one. Patrick Cantlay over Scotty Scheffler. So in Mark's matchup, in his best bet matchup, he ends up with two guys that finish inside the top 3 in this event. Pretty impressive stuff. And he got Cantlay. He got the winner. I wish he said Cantlay outright. And I'm sure he does too. And many of you watching do as well. But it was that's a tight matchup. And it must have been a really fun watch. But let's get over to one and done now. All right. So one and done. Mark had, well, we always start from the bottom, right? So Sia's gotten rid of the mush. He has had a nice end of the year, but still not enough to catch Kyle. So relegation, if this were another year, is imminent for Sia Nejad. He took Joaquin Neiman, cashed $420,000 out of it. Cam Davis for you, Kyle. I like that you still had him in play. That was it. You must have been feeling great about him coming in.
Yeah, I was. And part of it was just trying to pick somebody that none of you were going to pick, right?
Yeah.
I actually almost went with Zalatoris, which I'm really glad I didn't, although it doesn't really matter at this point. But I saved him, so I'll play him next week at the Tour Championship.
Oh, that's great. You got Will Zalatoris. You got a top 3 guy.
Yep.
That's
if he makes it through. I mean, if
he's healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's really it's so important in this event and so hard to do. But Rick had Tom Kim, and he cashed $34,350. Disappointing for him, but he's played like 21 weeks in a row. So I understand why Tom didn't have and I don't blame him, but he just narrowly missed out on making it to the Tour Championship. And I'm sure even though he's only 20, I'm sure his body needs a rest. I took Victor Hovland. I thought it would be a good golf course for him. I'm also very limited in my options. My strategy, I got behind early this year and I just started throwing all my ammo at it, and it didn't work out so well. So now I'm very limited. I have only a couple of players even available in the Tour Championship, and I don't have a top 3 guy. So Hovland, 67.75. Brian Harman, 67.750 for the coach. And that one kind of surprised me. He must be saving somebody because coach is in he's in position to get past Jacob and get on the podium.
Yeah, he is. And he took Brian Harmon in the second. Maybe he doesn't. Yeah, maybe he doesn't have anybody. Maybe he's like me.
Right, or me. Yeah, it could be. So without him being here, I'm not going to be judgmental because I certainly understand the situation. And you're trying to save guys for next week, and you don't know where they're going to finish. You don't want to save yourself on one guy and have him withdraw. It's a tough situation this time of year. But Jacob, with Cam Young, come on in here, Jacob. This is phenomenal. 133 large coming out of this one. You're in third. This was a perfect golf course for him.
It was a perfect one. And in fact, it was kind of disappointing. He shot 72 over the weekend.
Yeah, I thought he was going to kind of be in it.
I thought so too after Friday. So
yeah, Rick and I talked about him on Friday night.
We're still in it. I'm doing the math. I'm taking the calculations. I'm trying to figure out who Mark's got. I'm pretty sure he's going with Rory. I'll spoil it right now who I got for the Tour Championship. I got Patrick Cantlay. So,
wow.
We could see a big upset at the end here because 5.4 million would go to whoever gets first place.
Wow.
Because you double the 2.7 from the FedEx St. Jude.
But if he uses Rory, he's going to get presumably a bunch. What's like 10th place?
10th place would be 408.
Like doubled or
so 400. So you double that, so it'd be close to 800,000.
So Jacob? Can you get to 13? What's the winning? You're looking at what is it? 5-4.
It's tough because you got to figure out what Mark's gonna get, like the margin that you get. You got to beat Mark.
You can get him.
I think I can. I think Coach could get him too. The fans most certainly could. Greg, I think you might have an outside shot. We don't have Steve Sands anymore doing the whiteboard.
No, I might have a mathematical shot, but I don't have a shot. I don't have the players. Do you
have Sepp Straka? Sepp Straka might be a viable Tour Championship play at 4 under.
Pivot play. I Scott Stallings. I have him. I think. I might not.
I think we all do.
I might not have him.
I think I gotta
check that out.
We got to set a rule next year where you have to use Sepp Straka and Scott Stallings at least 1 point throughout the season.
I like that.
I'm fine with that. Absolutely fine with it. I play them all the time. All right. So the fans, Jacob, by the way, is like the comeback most improved, no question. Mark's beating Rob Bolton, so he's a superstar. But Jacob this is a beautifully played year.
Mark also plays with inside information, which we have to always just keep that in the front of our minds because we are not at nearly as many events as he is. He can chat with these guys on the range, get some inside nuggets. He still doesn't know what a sleeper is, but
the fans is a collective group. So this one, they may have inside information. I don't know, but they went with Joaquin Neiman and they also with Sia. And they tied winning the week, 420K. Big week for Joaquin, who played some great golf, finished tied 8th. Disappointing 70 on Sunday, but still really, really good golf out of him and out of the fans. So this is an interesting race now. We have $1.4 million or thereabouts separating the fans and Mark, who has been dominating all year long. And Mark's got to play. He's got to feel like Scotty Scheffler. He's got to play a great week if he wants to win this thing. Otherwise, he's going to get clipped. The fans can do it. And they have ammo, Kyle. They got a late start to the year.
Yeah, they do. What are they? 1.4. Rory's a problem. I don't know. Do the fans, who do they have left? Do they have any of the top 5?
They must. I can't go through it right now, but they got to have. I think they've played Will Zalatoris.
Have they played Chef?
I don't know. They might not have played Chef.
They have played Chef. They've played Scotty Scheffler.
Cantlay?
Cantlay might be on the board for him.
Oof.
Oh, nope. They use Cantlay at the British Open.
That's huge for you, Jacob.
That is big for me.
Zalatoris?
used Zalatoris at the U.S. Open.
Wow. So the top 3 is out.
They might be playing Sep.
You could always play Sep. There's always money in Sep Straka.
There's always money in Seps.
And the banana stand.
Exactly.
So it's going to be really interesting.
I don't think
that
Cam?
they have used both Camerons, Young and Smith.
Okay.
They've used Sam Burns. Sung Jae is off the board for them.
wow.
That's the problems.
Yeah, they have problems.
Well, that's the issue. They didn't think this out. All however many of them that voted.
I love that they've doubled me up in like 4 months, and I'm like, the fans have some problems.
Yeah. Yeah, so do we, Kyle. So do we.
Yes.
Bet a tough year in one and done. I was really hoping to have a chance to win. You know, this is what you want. You want to go into the last week with a chance to win. Jacob has a great chance to win, and Mark obviously does too, because it looks like he's going to play Rory, and he's got a big lead. So that's.
I think my play of the year was Schauffele at the American Express. Great play, great job.
Yeah, I played him at the PGA. So a guy with 4 wins. Did he miss the cut at American Express?
He won like $50,000, I think.
So between you and I, a player who's going to win Player of the Year,
the most money ever on the PGA Tour, and we got 50 grand out of him.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's crushing. I mean, that could be the difference. I mean, we're not going there.
He made $55,955.
Zero. I walk away with 0. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it's tough. I got a 0 out of Finau. I got 2 zeros out of DJ. I picked him twice. I got a 0 from Marty Fish, crooked Marty Fish.
I got a 0 out of Sepp Straka. So actually, we're gonna go back and say there's not always money in picking Sepp Straka.
I got 38 grand from Brooks. Great job at the U.S. Open, Brooks.
That's nice.
46 grand out of Rom. I think I picked him twice also.
Oh.
This is just tough to 64 out of Cantlay.
This is how you end up at the bottom, nearing relegation.
Yeah.
UNC in a relegation match next week.
Seriously.
That's tight. That's tight. 200K with this big purse.
Yeah, it is.
All right. We have to get serious here before we wrap up the show. Today, at the age of 79, Tom Weiskopf, PGA Tour and golf legend, passed away with pancreatic cancer. Couple of big notes on him. 16 PGA Tour wins. He won the 1973 Open Championship, 4 PGA Tour Champions wins. He won the 1995 U.S. Senior Open. He won the 1963 Western Amateur Championship, which Kyle talks about it feeling like a big deal. That is. He played on 2. He was a 2-time U.S. Ryder Cup captain, and a world famous golf course designer. And, you know, when he first came out, KP, he was out of Ohio State, kind of the first next Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah.
So the game of golf has lost a very special individual.
For sure. Obviously we didn't cover him. He's a lot older than kind of when we came into the sport, but it's always fun and enlightening to go back and read up on, a lot of these guys that came before our time, and you read, I was reading some Dan Jenkins stuff today, some Jaime Diaz stuff. And I mean, Weiskopf was just a unbelievable talent. I think one of the guys that the most talent to least public fame, like historical fame of maybe like got to be top 5 in golf history. Because he didn't probably win as much as people thought he would. And some of that was mentality. I read some quotes from him where he just talked about struggling, like to let things go on the golf course, and how that, he didn't win because of it. There's a great quote from, I think it was the 86 Masters, where he was commentating and they threw it over to him. And I think it was Nance asked, like, what's Jack Nicklaus thinking right now? And he said, well, if I knew that, I probably would have won this golf tournament.
Yeah.
And he famously finished finished second 4 times at Augusta National. Probably his closest call was 1975. He led Nicklaus by 1 and Johnny Miller by 4 going into the final round. He actually led after 69 holes also, but played the last 3 and 1 over and lost to Nicklaus, tied with Miller and lost to Nicklaus by 1. That was a pretty famous Masters where he came up obviously short once again I think that was the 4th time that he had finished second. So yeah, huge loss. It's always sad when the greats are gone. But also a golfing life certainly to be celebrated.
Absolutely. And a broadcasting life to be celebrated too, which I think that's what I think of when I think of Tom Weiskopf. I think of that call on 16 in 1986, which of course I've only watched on YouTube. But it's just a great call. So phenomenal. I also think of Tom Weiskopf every year when we go to TPC Scotts.
Yeah.
He designed that, and we're blessed with a great tournament every year. And he's a big part of that. So, well, that's all we have for you tonight. But I do want to offer, as we always do, Kyle, you have any final thoughts for us?
I don't think so. It was a fun week. BMW, USAM. We've got more upcoming Tour Championship, a bunch of live stuff after that. So should be fireworks for at least a couple more weeks before we get into kind of the heart of the football season.
Yep, it's looking like it. So buckle up, hold on, because you're going to be hearing some rather interesting conversations around the game of golf for the next couple of weeks, and we'll be here to walk you through all that. So it's officially Tour Championship week. I can't believe it's the final event of the PGA Tour season, but it's here, and we'll have a DFS episode for you tomorrow night at 5:30. We'll have a super preview on Tuesday for you. Likely a betting preview, final betting preview on Wednesday as well. And then of course, round by round coverage, round by round recaps every round after the Tour Championship. So there's a lot to get to in the upcoming week. We thank you for listening. And I hope you have a great Sunday night.